Hi, my name is George Daniel. I am a fly fishing guide and instructor from central Pennsylvania. I've been fly fishing for 36 years now, I believe. But I just enjoy education. One of the things I've always wanted and always wanted to do as a young child was actually being able to teach and make a career out of fly fishing. So for the last 20 years, I've been teaching and instructing, and currently I am the lead instructor at Penn State University. We're going to talk about jigging with streamers. There's multiple ways and different ways of approaching the streamer game. There's definitely a time and place where you want to cast larger streamers, streamers that swim, streamers that move and jerk like jerk baits. But there are also situations and times where you want to fish your fly down deep. And you can look at streamer fishing just like the way you look at nymph fishing. And often, as my mentor, Mr. Joe Humphreys, always said, the difference between a good nymphing day and an okay nymphing day is usually one split shot. And with streamers, it's the same way. Often, I believe with streamers, you're often going for some sort of reactionary bite. It's not always a strike that is out of hunger. Sometimes when a fly, or a streamer in this case, comes in close proximity to a larger, kind of more dominant trout, that trout is going to try to shoo it or spook it or try to kill it. And I think one of the things you want to do as an angler when those fish are not in the shallower waters hunting is actually bringing the fight to the fish, fishing your flies slower and deeper, basically putting that fly in their face and causing some sort of reaction. In this case, we're hoping to get some sort of pissed off reactionary strike. And that's what we're going to do with streamers. And one of the ways we can achieve depth is do this like you would with nymph fishing. In high stick nymphing, European nymphing, and that is keeping line and leader off the water. With traditional streamer tactics, no matter how fast of a sinking fly line you're using, anytime you put a sinking line on the water, it's got a surface area. It's going to create drag, and it's going to move that streamer. It's going to put tension under. You're going to get some depth, but you're not going to fish your fly slow and deep. One of the things that we can do with a European nymphing approach is just basically replace the nymphs with a streamer. We can cast a streamer, keep line leader off the water. That's going to allow our streamer to drop quickly and then also stay in that bottom, in that strike zone, hopefully in that reactionary place that that fish is holding. And this is one of the things that we're going to be doing and talking about. There's a number of ways you can create streamers, but I think some of the cool things about this type of approach is that the streamers don't need to be complicated. We're not trying to swim a fly or get the fly to kick and turn. Our primary purpose with this streamer approach is getting the fly down deep. And this is where we want a thinner profile fly, a fly that's going to drop quickly down the bottom. And once it's down the bottom, we can move the fly with the rod tip. We don't want a fly that's thick or has water absorbent materials, materials like with wool and hair, something that's going to feel like you're pulling a wet sock. What you're trying to do is you're trying to fish a fly that's thinnest profile as possible. It's going to cut to that water column, and then it's going to have water-phobic materials. It can be tied with synthetics or a combination of natural materials like marabou. But when you pull that or when you jig it, it's going to slide through the water column nice and smooth rather than feeling like you're pulling a friction or you're pulling a wet sock to the water column. In the springtime, like April and May, a lot of our young of the year trout, brook and brown trout, begin to hatch. And we have these little beautiful little trout, parmark trout. And I think a lot of times live your predatory fish in the spring are often hunting down this available food source. So this little parmark jig streamer is a great one, especially in the springtime. And then also, anytime you're fishing waters where there's maybe marginal fisheries, where you actually have perch that coexist with trout. A lot of the lakes I've fished in California have trout, but they also have good populations of perch. This does a great job imitating little perch patterns as well. So this is one of my favorite patterns I like to tie. Another jig streamer is just a variation of my scalp snack, which is just another variation of a woolly bugger. But the whole idea with this fly is it's going to drop quickly down the bottom. So these have a short little tail. They're tied on the jig hook, so the fly is going to ride upside down. And the idea with the jig hook is you want that hook to invert, because a lot of times when you're fishing a streamer, you're literally bouncing this fly on the stream bottom. And when this hook is inverted, you're going to hung up a lot less, and you're allowing to drop your flies right along stream bottom. And this can imitate little sculpins, little crayfish. You can tie this in a variety of different color schemes, just kind of match the bait fish. The other thing that I think is really important is when you're doing this approach, you're doing this, or you can do this with a European nymphing rod. And European nymphing rods have longer, kind of wimpier rod tips. And a lot of the hook sets are going to be done with the rod tip. And because those European nymphing rods, when you set the hook, there's going to be a lot of give. And you need a smaller, sharper diameter hook that's going to be able to penetrate the fish's mouth. If you try to do this approach with a traditional streamer hook, a thicker, heavier gauge wire on a European nymphing rod, it's not going to work nearly as much. You don't have enough force, enough action in that rod tip to penetrate the fish's mouth with a traditional hook. So when you're doing this approach, the European nymphing approach with a jig streamer, I think it's so important to tie these on jig style streamer competition hook styles that have that small diameter that's going to give you that really good hook set with a minimum amount of force with the rod tip.